39 minutes past the hour of 7, and we do welcome you back from that short break where earlier on I was having a sit-down conversation in regard to crisis management. It is very important for us to note that our leaders, even while you might think they have it all put together, they actually do not. So it's very important that you learn to manage your time and the way you react, especially during a crisis. Otherwise, the conversation on the Twitter jabs continues as we discuss the skyrocketing commodity prices in Uganda. Now, according to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the price of a laundry bar of soap increased by 20% between a period of December 2021 and February 2022, and by 47.8% in the past 1 year. Now, while fuel, or as you may call it, petrol, has risen by 15.3% in the past 3 months and 34% during the past 1 year, among other items. Now, according to information that was released by Statistics Uganda, cooking oil has registered the highest rise in price by 21% between the period of December 2021 and February 2022, and a 77.6% rise in the past 1 year. Now, in Kenya, it even gets worse, because even in the Twitter Jabs Part 1, when I was discussing with my colleague Sarah, and I was telling her that I saw pictures moving around social media of people lining up for fuel, and then she was saying, Banange Uganda lemwa, what are we going to do? And then she suggested that probably we should, this is our time, should be a miracle in disguise, learn to eat healthy, do away from fried foods. But no, we need commodity prices to come to, a reasonable stand. But also some legislators went ahead to ask that, can taxes be scrapped off if commodity prices are actually skyrocketing? But Mr. Ramadan Gobi came out to say that anyone who went to economics class 101 would know that scrapping off of taxes is not actually the way to go. And this morning, joining me at the center of this conversation is none other than Miss Jen Nalunga, and she's the executive director of Skyrocketing. Now, for those that do not know what Skyrocketing is, well, Skyrocketing in full is Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. Well, Uganda, it is a non-governmental organization that works to promote pro-development trade, fiscal and related policies for sustainable, equitable development and improved livelihoods in Uganda and the East African Community region. Well, she is also an expert in trade, tax and investment. Good morning, Ms. Nalunga, and thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise at Sea.
Thank you so much for having me, Shivana. I'm so happy to be here. I'm also grateful to CTV for giving us this platform.
Absolutely. So this morning we're going to be discussing the skyrocketing prices of commodities. First things first, I would like to know, what are the prices of the commodities in your area like? A general overview.
It's so difficult because when you go to a certain shop, a bar of soap can be 8,000. Then you send a child to another shop, it's 9,000. Then another shop, 7,000. And you hear them saying, no, don't go there, you go to that shop. That one is a bit cheaper. So even when you say that soap has gone up to so many percentage, you can't know, because it's like it's free for all, People are just demanding whatever price they want.
Okay, so as a trade expert and in your capacity as ED of Skyrocketing, I would like to understand, what do you think is causing these commodity prices to go through the roof?
One, because this is what also government said, our inputs come from outside. When you look at, for example, soap, palm oil.
Yes.
Palm oil, you know what, it's really fun about palm oil, because we do produce palm oil.
Absolutely, we do.
And we export palm oil, but we also import palm oil, And the palm oil we import is from Malaysia, Indonesia. And fuel prices have gone up, and they're also telling us about the war, So that dependence on outside countries is also a challenge when we talk about inputs into our production. And when you look at issues around fuel, Fuel also we get it from outside, and depends on the rising of the prices on the global market.
Yes.
You know, so there is also that dependency. You know, so we need to look at it that way also, that we depend a lot on inputs from outside, and we need to change that really.
So does that mean we're not advocating for the fiscal policy of buy Uganda, build Uganda if we are continuously depending on other countries to send us goods and commodities?
You see, they are, I think that right strategy which can help us to get out of this crisis. Because you see, government need to tackle this crisis in the immediate term, immediately. Because people are suffering really, you know. So in the rescue mode, what can government do? We see, for example, in Tanzania, they are putting a price cap on fuel prices, by the way.
Yes.
And the list is there, that in Mitiana, so much. In Masaka, so much. In Arua, the price of fuel is so much. And this goes to the role of the state, the role of government. Our government has left, you know, such things to the private sector. But we need some level of regulation, you know, because you see, the private sector regulates, stands in between, the government stands in between the private sector and the people. But if government leaves the private sector to do what they want, they will do what they want, and what they want is to make money, to make profits. So the role of government is really important. And the issue of import substitution, industrialization strategy is very important. It's there, and government talks about it. And I remember when government was producing the PPEs, the personal protection equipment, that's one of the issues they were saying, that no, let us produce our gloves, let us produce our masks instead of bringing them from outside. So the strategy is there on paper. And I think it's really important that government implements that strategy. Because, Shivana, when you look at how soap is made, palm oil can be substituted with sunflower, with soya bean. And these are products which we can grow anywhere, you know, anywhere. So in a way, we are having a challenge, but there is a silver lining that now we can say palm oil, we are not importing anymore. We can be able to grow our soya bean, and we are growing it. Let us grow more sunflower. Yes. Let us give the right price, you know, because somebody was telling me, why are we exporting sunflower and soya bean? And one of them, the issues is a reliable market. Even the price, people would prefer to sell it outside. Then you talked about bubu. Let us buy Uganda, build Uganda. Let us buy our sunflower at the right price. Let us give farmers a right price. The reliable market are the industries which are going to process our soya bean and sunflower into soap and into cooking oil. Because for me, really, what amazes me that the price of cooking oil has gone up. When we produce our sunflower, we produce soya bean here, we produce sim here, and all those are oil, vegetable oil, and very, very healthy. You know, so it's a matter of reorganizing the way we think, reorganizing the way we produce.
Okay. Now, looking at the fact that some legislators, and even while we're discussing with my colleague on the Twitter jab, some people on Twitter did come out to suggest that maybe the way to go, even since commodities are going up high, maybe the way to go would be removal of taxes. What is your opinion on that?
It can be. They can remove taxes. And maybe what I'm calling upon Ugandans, because the tax cycle is on, discussions are on, government tabled their tax proposals in Parliament, and now Ugandans, we are free to be able to say, please remove this tax add on that tax. So taxes are also a factor
in
increasing the end price of a product.
How about if we decided to reduce them?
Then it can also work. Let them be reduced. But sometimes reducing a tax doesn't translate into the actual price.
Yes.
And unless also government controls the actual price, because government is not in control of the actual price. So we'll be losing double. Private sector, they are not paying taxes, but they haven't reduced the price. Government has done their part, and the private sector, they haven't reduced the cost of the product. So when we are talking about reducing taxes, we need to look at, will it be effective in order to reduce the eventual cost? Can government be able to hold those industries accountable to the eventual price or not?
Okay, but even while we're looking at the removal or the reduction of taxes, still even Mr. Ramadan Gobi did go out to point out that this could actually affect when it comes to service delivery, especially in the health sector. So don't you think we are creating a problem within a problem if we decide to say that, okay, let's reduce taxes on some commodities?
Yeah, it would be, because government depends on tax collection to be able to provide services, roads and hospitals and medicines, And this is where government has to weigh. Because at the end of the day, when somebody can't wash their clothes, you can't be healthy when you can't afford soap. So these are the weighing which government has to do. Some governments have been, like I'm saying, subsidizing directly, and subsidies for a short term where you are putting certain measures in place. So what I think what needs to be done is for government to be able to analyze each and every option, what's the immediate, what needs to be done immediate, what are the options? Should government subsidize? Should government question the private sector? So there are things which need to be done in the medium term. Should government have a budget? I hear government has been getting supplementary budgets. Can we get a supplementary budget to give people to produce soya beans and sunflower? Can government look at options of putting an export tax, so that we are not exporting our soya bean, our sunflower, and it remains inside?
Okay.
Can government look at assisting the private sector to put in place more industries to process the simsim, to process the sunflower, the soya beans? All these are options. And at the end of that day, for me, the beauty about it, these options, is that people will be producing. Because the biggest challenge now, by the way, is not that the bulk soap has gone to 8,000.
What is the biggest problem?
The biggest problem is your income. How much are you getting? We are calculating the other time, a kilo of maize was 700 in the village.
Okay.
And that time, there's a time when above soap went up to 10,000 in the villages, 12,000.
Yeah, that is true.
So you calculate and see, you need about 10 or 13 kilograms of maize to buy one bowl of soap.
Yes.
So the issue, if the price of maize had gone up also, and it's 10,000, you can sell 1 kilo of maize and buy 1
bar
of soap. So you see that lack of corresponding, rise of produce and the rise of consumables, which is also a problem.
Okay, so you mentioned a few vital things that I picked out, but I'm also very aware of some of the initiatives that are being put forward by other countries, especially when you did highlight Tanzania putting a price cap. Do you think that this is an initiative that Ugandans should adopt, or what can the government do actually?
adopt
The price cap, you
price
mentioned,
cap.
yes.
It can. You know, you hear sometimes our leaders saying no. You remember the issue of the fuel, when fuel was going up, just because there was a problem at the border. Within no time, the price had gone up. And a minister comes out to say, oh, we are liberalized. We are in a free market economy. It's supply and demand. You know, throwing around such words, you know. So a price cap means that government is taking on a certain role of intervening in the economy. And that is an issue which government has to sit and change. That today we are no longer talking about supply and demand. Because the moment you talk about supply and demand, you leave it. If soap goes to 10,000 to 20, it's issues of market forces. So we go back to what should be the role of the state when it comes to development.
Okay.
And that's an issue, a whole entire debate which we need to put on table as Ugandans.
So would you say that the aftermath of the COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 lockdown has anything to do with the high fuel prices and the skyrocketing commodity prices?
Yeah. The COVID pandemic had an impact on the rise of especially fuel. And fuels everything, the industries and,
yes,
you know,
yes.
And the cars and everything. And, you know, when the lockdown ended, you know, even globally, the industries, you know, started working, you know, economic activity started, you know, being more active than ever before, and fuel prices went up. So it's true that the post-COVID, you know, situation has led to the rise of fuel and the rise of commodity prices. But there are things which we can't control. We can't control fuel prices at the global level. We are just Ugandans here. So when we are looking at the way forward, we need to see what can we control, what should be in our control. And for me, I think we need to reduce our dependence, you know, continue. We can't entirely do away with the global world. You know, yes. We are globalized, you know, it's a global economy. You know? But we need to be able to see how do we reduce that dependency, because it's like depending on your neighbor. If your neighbor is sick, you won't eat. If your neighbor coughs, you sneeze here. You know, we can't move on like that.
Yes.
You know, we need to reduce our dependence on the outside world. And one of them is import substitution. Why do we import palm oil? When we have palm oil, we have given our forest. For me, I think that's a very high price to pay for palm oil. Why don't we say, let us stop importing palm oil, let us also stop growing palm oil and protect our forests, you know, let us grow beans, soya beans and sunflower and simsim. And this is food. You know, very healthy food. Absolutely. And then you are paying people, and you have industries, and our young people have work to do, and we are buying the soap at very affordable price. You know, that cycle, you know. So let us think differently. Okay. But there are things which we can't control. Issues of fuel, you know, and I think this is also another issue as Ugandans, as East Africans, which we need to look at. We produce oil, you know, oil. We are now talking about DRC joining us. What do we want from DRC? They have oil. Kenya has oil. But here we are still looking at getting oil from outside. And they tell us, now Ukraine and Russia are fighting, we can't get fuel.
So are you trying to say that the international conflict has no impact in regard to the commodity prices skyrocketing?
It has.
Okay.
Shivana, what I'm saying, we can't control that. And wars are going to continue. Today is Russia and Ukraine. You never know, Russia might invade another country. Another country will fight.
So the state shouldn't be using that as an excuse.
No. What I'm saying is that we need to reduce that dependency, because
levels.
we can't control that environment. Wars are going to be there. Fuel prices are going to go up and down, you know. So we can't say that because the fuel prices have gone up, we can't afford soap. We have to use purple leaves. We can't do that, you know. So what I'm saying, let us look inwards, see what we can get from the neighbor, but what can we do ourselves?
Yes.
You know, and we have it. We have it. So let us look inwards. That's what I'm saying, that the outside you never control.
Absolutely.
But the inside
we can.
So and we should.
Okay. So let's look at the consumer protection policy in Uganda. Do you think that it is something that has been taken up and it's being effective when it comes to this country?
No, we don't have that. We haven't yet, government hasn't yet enacted the Consumer Protection Act. And the Consumer Protection Act goes with the Competition Policy.
Yes.
And Competition Act.
Absolutely.
You know, the way government regulates competition, it's very, very important. And it's also part of this issue. Because you find somebody produces, it's somebody who produces, then sells even the single bar. The consumers are not protected, you know. So those are some of the policies which should be put in place. But the beauty of it, the competition policy, is in this year's budget. Okay. It's planned for. And I call upon citizens to give their views in this matter.
Okay. So as we wind up the conversation, in this case, in case issues are to get out of hand, what would be our best solution? They have gone out of hand. Maybe, Shivana, for you, they are still in your hands. But other people, issues have gone out of hand. So if somebody can't afford a bowl of soap, really, you know, we are human beings. Yes. And we need to live a life of dignity, you know. Human being, you have to live as a human being. You have to bathe. You have to smell nice, you know. But imagine a home which doesn't have soap, you know. So things have gone out of hand. But the beauty about Ugandans is we keep quiet. If you don't have soap, you don't publicize it because we feel ashamed. It's like when we go to the taxi. Yes.
You see people whispering, I have 1,000. And the taxi man says, if you don't have 2,000, don't enter. And somebody keeping quiet. That's the nature of Ugandans. So things are out of hand. And I think in the immediate term, we need some rescue actions by government.
So those are your immediate solutions, things that should be done immediately.
Immediately. Government should either subsidize the soap or should sit with the producers and ask exactly what's happening. Because I was one time on KFM with Mr. Gold, and was saying, you know, you ask what tax. They are saying their tax is what tax. You know, so government should intervene in the immediate term.
Absolutely.
But in the immediate term, but in the medium and long term, we need to have solutions to such simple things like soap. You know, in this century, when you look at all these scientists we have trained, and we say we can't produce our own soap using what we are producing, for me I think that's a problem. So government should look at issues in the immediate, in the low, medium term, and the long term. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that each Ugandan has a right to the basic necessities like soap. Yes. Because soap is not a luxury.
No.
It's a basic necessity. Soap, salt, sugar. You know?
And cooking oil.
and cooking oil.
So finally, what are your last remarks in regard to this conversation?
The last remarks really is that as Ugandans, you know, because it's we Ugandans who put these governments into power.
Yes.
We need to have more of these conversations as Ugandans, and I think we need to put government to task, to put our leaders, our members of parliament to task, but also when we are putting our members of parliament to task, we give them proposals, alternatives, what needs to be done. But what I'm calling upon Ugandans, really, they have to demand their rights. Government has an obligation to make us happy because we are taxpayers.
Yes, we
aren't
are.
we?
Yes.
Yeah, we are. And our taxes should do something.
Well, thank
for
you.
Us.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us at the center of this discussion.
Thank you so much,
Nalunga.
Ivana.
We're so glad to have had you this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, that winds
and
up.
Thanks, TV.
Absolutely. Well, that winds up the conversation that we had for you this morning on Sunrise at Sea. If you missed the interview, worry not, because this particular episode will be uploaded to our YouTube channel later today. And I was having a sit-down discussion with Miss Jen Nalunga, and she is the Executive Director of C18. Otherwise, we take a quick break, but when we do return, we get into another exciting episode still in regard to wellness, beauty, and lifestyle. And Sarah Apollo will be looking at toning tables. I shall not give you any insight in regard to that. Just keep watching Sunrise at Sea and don't blink.